Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learn English with Ramya. Have you ever had a great idea in your mind but couldn't say it in English? You knew the words, you understood the grammar, but when it was finally your turn to speak, your mind suddenly became quiet. If that has ever happened to you, don't worry, you're not alone. It happens to English learners all over the world, even at advanced levels. Today's topic is Stop Thinking, Start Talking. This episode is not about learning hundreds of new words or memorizing difficult grammar rules. Instead, it's about changing the way you use English in everyday life. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why speaking confidently is often more important than speaking perfectly. So take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin. Imagine this situation. You're sitting in a meeting, your teacher asks a question, a tourist asks you for directions, or maybe you're talking with an international friend online. You know the answer. You have already studied the grammar. You have learned the vocabulary. But before speaking, your brain starts asking too many questions. Is this the correct tense? Should I use has been or had been? What if my pronunciation sounds strange? What if everyone notices my mistake? By the time you finished thinking, someone else has already spoken. Does this sound familiar? Many learners believe that speaking English is difficult because they don't know enough vocabulary. Surprisingly, that's usually not the real problem. The real problem is overthinking. Overthinking creates an invisible wall between your thoughts and your voice. The words are already inside your mind, but fear keeps them from coming out naturally. Children don't learn language by waiting until every sentence is perfect. They speak, make mistakes, laugh, learn something new, and keep talking. Adults often do the opposite. We try to make every sentence perfect before saying even one word. Ironically, that search for perfection makes us speak less. Here's something interesting. Think about your first language. When you speak with your family or friends, do you carefully analyze every sentence before saying it? Of course not. You simply speak. Your ideas flow naturally because your attention is focused on communication, not perfection. That's exactly what happens with confident English speakers too. Many people believe fluent speakers never make mistakes. That's simply not true. Even native speakers forget words. They pause, they change their sentences halfway through, sometimes they use the wrong word and immediately correct themselves. Communication is naturally imperfect. The difference is that confident speakers don't panic when small mistakes happen. Instead, they keep the conversation moving. Now imagine two English learners. The first learner has excellent grammar knowledge, but spends 30 seconds thinking before every sentence. The second learner makes small grammar mistakes, but speaks with confidence, smiles, and keeps the conversation alive. Which person will probably have more successful conversations? Most people will enjoy talking with the second learner. Why? Because conversations are about connection. People remember how comfortable they felt while talking with you, not whether every verb was perfectly conjugated. Confidence doesn't mean speaking without mistakes. Confidence means speaking even when mistakes are possible. This small mindset shift changes everything. Instead of asking yourself, what if I make a mistake? Ask yourself, what if I successfully communicate my idea? Notice how different those two questions feel. The first question creates fear. The second question creates possibility. Your brain follows the questions you ask. If you constantly search for mistakes, you'll always find something wrong. If you focus on sharing ideas, your attention moves towards communication instead of fear. Here's a simple example. Suppose you're ordering coffee. Instead of building the perfect sentence in your head, simply say, "Hi, I'd like a medium latte, please." That's enough. The goal isn't to impress the barista with advanced English. The goal is to communicate successfully. Every small conversation is practice. Every simple sentence builds confidence. Every successful interaction teaches your brain an important lesson. I can do this. Over time, these small victories become habits. And once speaking becomes a habit instead of a test, English starts feeling less like a school subject and more like a natural part of your daily life. One of the biggest myths about learning English is the idea that fluency arrives one day, like a special gift. People often say, when I learn 5,000 more words, I'll start speaking. When my grammar becomes perfect, I'll finally feel confident. When my pronunciation sounds like a native speaker, then I'll begin having conversations. But that day rarely comes. Why? Because confidence doesn't appear before action. Confidence grows because of action. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You can read books about balance, you can watch hundreds of videos, you can understand every scientific explanation. But until you actually get on the bicycle, your body will never learn how to balance. Speaking English works in exactly the same way. Reading builds knowledge, listening builds understanding, speaking builds fluency. Each skill is important, but only one of them trains your mouth and your brain to work together in real time. That's why many learners can understand almost everything in a movie or podcast, but they suddenly freeze when someone asks a simple question. Their knowledge is there, their speaking habit is not. The good news is that habits can be built, and they don't require perfect conditions. Let's imagine another situation. You meet someone new. They ask, "So, what do you do?" Immediately, your mind becomes busy. You begin translating from your first language. You search for advanced vocabulary. You worry about grammar. Meanwhile, several seconds pass. Instead of answering naturally, you become nervous. Now imagine a different approach. You simply say, "I'm a student," or "I work in marketing," or "I'm learning English because I want better career opportunities." Simple, clear, natural. Notice that none of these answers are complicated, yet they keep the conversation moving. Fluent speakers understand something very important. Simple English is not weak English. Simple English is effective English. In fact, many successful business leaders, teachers, travelers, and professionals intentionally use simple language. Their goal isn't to sound intelligent. Their goal is to be understood. That's a powerful lesson. Many learners try to impress people. Confident speakers try to connect with people. There is a big difference. Connection creates meaningful conversations. Impressing people often creates unnecessary pressure. Another habit that keeps people silent is comparing themselves to others. Maybe you watch YouTubers who speak beautifully. Maybe you listen to podcasts with perfect pronunciation. Maybe you have a friend who speaks English effortlessly. Then you think, "I'll never sound like that." But remember something. You are comparing your beginning with someone else's years of practice. That's never a fair comparison. Every fluent speaker once struggled with words. Every confident speaker once felt nervous. Every excellent communicator once sounded like a beginner. Growth is invisible while it's happening. Imagine planting a small seed. You don't wake up the next morning expecting a huge tree. You water it, you give it sunlight, you stay patient. Little by little, the roots grow beneath the surface before anyone notices the leaves. Your English grows the same way. Sometimes you feel like you're making no progress, but every conversation, every podcast you listen to, every sentence you speak, every mistake you correct, they're all strengthening your foundation. Progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's hidden. But it's always happening if you continue practicing. Here's another helpful idea. Stop asking yourself, "How good is my English?" Start asking, "Did I communicate today?" Those are two completely different goals. The first focuses on judgment. The second focuses on progress. Imagine speaking English for just 5 minutes every day. Not studying, actually speaking. Describe your breakfast. Talk about your plans. Explain your favorite movie. Share your opinion about a news story. Speak while walking. Speak while cooking. Speak while cleaning your room. The topic doesn't matter. The habit does. The more often you express your thoughts, the less your brain feels that speaking English is a dangerous activity. Eventually, it becomes something normal. And when something feels normal, fear begins to disappear. Your voice becomes calmer. Your sentences become smoother. Your confidence becomes stronger. Not because you're perfect, but because you're no longer waiting for perfection before you speak. Have you ever noticed that some conversations feel effortless, while others feel exhausting? The difference is not always vocabulary or grammar. Very often, the difference is mindset. When you believe that every sentence is an exam, your brain becomes tense. You start listening to your own mistakes instead of listening to the other person. Instead of enjoying the conversation, you begin judging yourself. This creates a cycle. You become nervous. Because you're nervous, you make more mistakes. Those mistakes make you even more nervous. Then you decide to speak less. Breaking this cycle begins with one simple decision: allow yourself to be imperfect. Think about your favorite actor, singer, athlete, or entrepreneur. None of them became successful without making mistakes. They practiced, failed, learned, and improved. Language learning follows the same path. Mistakes are not proof that you're bad at English. They are proof that you're using English. Imagine learning to cook a new recipe. The first time, you may add too much salt. The second time, you may cook it a little longer. After a few attempts, the recipe becomes easy. Would you stop cooking forever because your first meal wasn't perfect? Probably not. Then why should one small English mistake stop you from speaking again? Instead of feeling embarrassed, become curious. If someone corrects your English, don't think, "I failed." Think, "Great, now I know a better way to say it." That small change in attitude can completely transform your learning journey. Another powerful habit is to slow down. Many learners think fluency means speaking very fast. It doesn't. Real fluency means expressing your ideas clearly. In fact, many confident English speakers speak at a comfortable pace. They pause naturally, they think for a moment, they choose their words carefully. There is nothing wrong with saying, "Let me think for a second," or "That's an interesting question." These expressions give you a little extra time while keeping the conversation natural. Silence for 1 or 2 seconds is normal. Panicking because of that silence is optional. Now let's talk about vocabulary. Some learners collect thousands of difficult words, but rarely use them. Others know fewer words, but use them every single day. Who becomes a better speaker? Usually the second person. Words become useful only when they become active vocabulary. For example, if you learn the word opportunity, don't just memorize its meaning. Create your own sentences. I had a great opportunity to meet new people. Learning English gives me more career opportunities. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve. The more you use a word, the more naturally it appears in future conversations. Language grows through use, not through memorization alone. There's another secret that confident speakers understand. They don't try to sound like someone else. They don't copy every accent. They don't worry about having the perfect voice. Instead, they focus on expressing their own personality. If you're kind in your native language, be kind in English. If you're funny, let your humor appear in English too. If you're curious, ask interesting questions. Your personality is much more memorable than your accent. People enjoy talking with someone who is friendly, interested, and genuine. Those qualities matter far more than perfect pronunciation. So the next time you have a chance to speak English, remember this simple idea. Your goal is not to perform. Your goal is to connect. Speak to share an idea. Speak to tell a story. Speak to ask a question. Speak to learn something new. Every conversation is another step forward. Every sentence makes your brain a little faster. Every mistake teaches a valuable lesson. Every smile makes communication easier. And one day, you'll notice something surprising. You'll begin speaking before you even realize you're translating. Ideas will come naturally. Conversations will feel lighter. You'll laugh, respond, explain, and share your opinions without constantly checking every grammar rule in your mind. That is what real progress feels like. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens one conversation, one sentence, and one brave decision at a time. If you enjoyed today's English podcast, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new English lesson. Share this episode with a friend who wants to speak English more confidently, and let me know in the comments. What is one situation where you want to speak English without overthinking? I'd love to read your answers. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Learn English with Ramya.